Welcome back to the Buddhism YouTube channel. Today we will continue reading the Sorrowless Flower, written Ngoc Tran Dharma named Thien Phuc episodes number 15. 201. Faith Practice Vow. According to the ninth patriarch of Pure Land Buddhism, the great master Ui, if faith and vow are solidified, when nearing death, it is possible to gain rebirth by reciting the Buddha's name in 10 recitations. In contrast, no matter how much one recites Buddha, if faith and vow are weak and deficient, then this will result only in reaping the merits and blessings in the heavenly or human realms. However, this teaching only applies to beings with higher faculties. As for us, beings with low faculties, thin blessings and heavy karmas, if we wish to gain rebirth to the ultimate bliss world, we must have faith, practices and vow. In other words, we must carry out both parts of theory in practice. Faith regarded as the faculty of the mind which sees, appropriates, and trusts the things of religion. It joyfully trusts in the Buddha, in the pure virtue of the Triratna and earthly and transcendental goodness. It is the cause of the pure life, and the solvent of doubt. According to the Pure Land Buddhism, faith is believing in the ultimate bliss world truly exists just as the Saha world on which we are currently living. Faith means to have faith that Amitabha Buddha is always protecting and will readily rescue and deliver any sentient being who knows to respect and recite sincerely his name. According to the Pure Land Buddhism, practice means one must recite the Amitabha Buddha with the utmost sincerely to the point of achieving one-mind or single-minded recitation in order to establish the unimaginable connections and having the Buddha rescue and deliver the cultivator to the Western Pure Land after death. According to Most Venerable Thien Phuc and the 13 patriarchs of Pure Land Buddhism, with point of view from the Pure Land, practice means to take action or make application of the teaching. This means to recite often the virtuous name Namo Amitabha Buddha without distraction and without chaos throughout one's life. Vow is something that comes from the heart and soul, a deep-rooted promise, swearing to be unrelenting and seeking to attain a goal. This is having a certain mindset or something one wishes to achieve and never give up until the objective is realized. Thus, there should be absolutely no reason whatsoever that should cause one to regress or give up that vow or promise. Sincere Buddhists should vow to follow the teachings to cultivate to become Buddhas, then to use the magnificent Dharma of enlightenment of the Buddhas, and vow to give them to all sentient beings, to abandon their ignorance to cross over to enlightenment, to abandon delusion to follow truths. According to the Pure Land Buddhism, vow is to wish sincerely, praying to find liberation from the sufferings of this Saha world, to gain rebirth to the peaceful ultimate bliss world. According to Most Venerable Thien Phuc and the 13 patriarchs of Pure Land Buddhism, with point of views of the Pure Land, vow is with each thought that arises, there is a love and yearning to gain rebirth in the ultimate bliss world, and with each thought, there is a wish and prayer to achieve a place in the 9 levels of Golden Lotus. In these 3 components of faith, practice, and vow, it is absolutely essential for the Pure Land cultivator to have all 3, however, vow is the most important. 202. The Four Holy Ways. According to the Sanjiti Sutta in the Long Discourses of the Buddha, there are the 4 holy ways. 1. Wearing rags from dust heaps. Here a monk is content with any old robe, praises such contentment, and does not try to attain robes improperly or unsuitably. He does not worry if he does not get a robe, and if he does, he is not full of greedy, blind desire, but makes use of it, aware of such dangers and wisely aware of its true purpose. Nor is he conceited about being thus content with any old robe, and he does not disparage others. And one who is thus skillful, not lax, clearly aware and mindful, is known as a monk who is true to the ancient original Aryan lineage. 2. A monk is content with any alms food he may get, similar as in 1. 3. A monk is content with any old lodging place or sitting under trees, similar as in 1. 4. Entire withdrawal from the world or fond of abandoning, similar as in 1. 203. 4 Magnanimous Vows. The magnanimous vows mean the 4 universal vows of a Buddha or Bodhisattva. 4 magnanimous vows are 4 all-encompassing vows. The 4 great vows are basically a Mahayana reinterpretation of the 4 holy truths. In addition to ending one's own suffering, one vows to end the suffering of all living beings. In addition to eliminating one's own afflictions, one vows to end the inexhaustible afflictions of all living beings. In addition to learning only the single Dharma door necessary for one's own enlightenment, one vows to learn all the Dharma doors so that one can teach all living beings appropriately. Rather than being satisfied with reaching the stage of the Arhat, one vows to become a Buddha. However, it is not enough just to recite the vows. You have to return the light and think them over. The vows say that I will save countless number of beings. Have I done so? If I have, it should still be the same as if I had not saved them. Why? It is said that the thus come one saves all living beings, and yet not a single living being has been saved. This means that even though you have saved quite a few numbers of living beings, but do not attach to the mark of saving living beings. According to the Mahayana, the 4 great magnanimous vows that are part of the Bodhisattva vow as they are recited 3 times successively in a Zen monastery after ending the practice of sitting meditation. These vows are also recited at the end of any Buddhist ceremonies. First, vow to save all living beings without limits. Sentient beings are numberless, countless, I vow to save them all. According to the 6th Patriarch Huineng Sutra, good knowing advisors, did all of you not just say, I vow to take across the limitless beings? What does it mean? You should remember that it is not Huineng who takes them across. Good knowing advisors, the living beings within your mind are deviant and confused thoughts, deceitful and false thoughts, unwholesome thoughts, jealous thoughts, vicious thoughts. And these thoughts are living beings, the self-nature of each one of them must take itself across. That is true crossing over. What is meant by the self-nature taking across? It is to take across by means of right views the living beings of deviant views, affliction, and delusion within your own mind. Once you have right views, use prajna wisdom to destroy the living beings of delusion, confusion, and falsehood. Each one takes itself across. Enlightenment takes confusion across, wisdom takes delusion across, goodness takes evil across. Such crossing over is a true crossing. Second, vow to put an end to all passions and delusions, though numerous. Afflictions, annoyances, are inexhaustible, endless, I vow to end, cut, them all. Also according to the 6th Patriarch Huineng Sutra, I vow to cut off the inexhaustible afflictions. That is to use the prajna wisdom of your own self-nature to cast out the vain and false thoughts in your mind. Third, vow to study and learn all methods and means without end. Schools and traditions are manifold, I vow to study them, all the teachings of Dharma are boundless, I vow to learn them all. Also according to the 6th Patriarch Huineng Sutra, I vow to study the immeasurable Dharma door. You must see your own nature and always practice the right Dharma. That is true study. Fourth, vow to become perfect in the Supreme Buddha law. The Buddha way, truth, is supreme, unsurpassed, I vow to complete, realize it. Also according to the 6th Patriarch Huineng Sutra, I vow to realize the Supreme Buddha way, and with humble mind to always practice the true and proper. Separate yourself from both confusion and enlightenment, and always give rise to prajna. When you cast out the true and the false, you see your nature and realize the Buddha way at the very moment it is spoken of. Always be mindful, cultivate the Dharma that possesses the power of this vow. 204. 10 Bodhisattvas' vows. According to the studies in the Lankavatara Sutra, written by Zen Master D.T. Suzuki, according to his transcendental insight into the truth of things, the Bodhisattva knows that it is beyond all eradicates and not at all subject to any form of description, but his heart full of compassion and love for all beings who are unable to step out of the dualistic whirlpools of becoming or not becoming, he directs his vows towards their salvation and emancipation. His own heart is free from such attachments as are ordinarily cherished by the unemancipated, but that which feels persists, for his insight is not destroy this, and hence his purvapranidhana, his upakasalya, his nirmanakaya. Yet all that he does for the maturity of all beings in response to their needs is like the moon reflection in water, showing himself in all forms and appearances he preaches to them on the Dharma. His activity is what is in Mahayana phraseology called anabhagakarya deeds that are effortless, effectless, and purposeless. When the Bodhisattva enters upon the first stage called joy or pramudita, in the career of his spiritual discipline, he makes the following solemn vows, 10 in number, which, flowing out of his most earnest determined will, are as all-inclusive as the whole universe, extending to the extremity of space itself, reaching the end of time, exhausting all the number of kalpas or ages, and functioning uninterruptedly as long as there is the appearance of a Buddha. To honor and serve all the Buddhas, one and all without a single exception, to work for the preservation and perpetuation of the teaching of all the Buddhas, to be present at the appearance of each Buddha, wherever and whenever it may be. To practice the proper conduct of bodhisattvahood which is wide and measureless, imperishable and free from impurities, and to extend the virtues of perfection, paramitas, towards all beings, to induce all beings in the most comprehensive sense of the term, to turn to the teaching of the Buddhas, so that they may find their final abode of peace, in the wisdom of the all-wise ones. To have an inner perception of the universe, wide and inexhaustible, in all its possible multitudinousness, to realize the most closely interpenetrating relationship of each and all, of all and each, and to make every land of beings immaculate as a Buddha land, to be united with all the bodhisattvas in oneness of intention, to become intimately acquainted with the dignity, understanding, and psychic condition of the Tathagatas, so that the bodhisattva can enter any society of beings and accomplish the Mahayana which is beyond thought, to evolve the never-receding wheel whereby to carry out his work of universal salvation, by making himself like unto the great Lord of medicine or wish-fulfilling gem, and to realize the great supreme enlightenment in all the worlds. By going through the stages of Buddhahood and fulfilling the wishes of all beings with one voice, and while showing himself to be in nirvana, not to cease from practicing the objects of bodhisattvahood. 205. 8 consciousnesses. When we talk about consciousnesses, we usually misunderstand with the sixth consciousness according to Buddhist psychology. In fact, there are 6 basic sense consciousnesses, and the sixth one being the mental consciousness. Buddhist psychology bases the perception process on 6 sense faculties: sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and thought. Each faculty relates to a sense organ, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, and to a consciousness which functions specifically with that organ. The sixth consciousness, or the mind consciousness, is not the mind, it is the function of the mind. It does not depend on any of the 5 sense faculties, but on the immediately preceding continuum of mind. Mental consciousness apprehends not only objects, form, sound, taste, smell, and touch, in the present time, but it also apprehends objects and imagines in the past and even in the future. Then it transfers these objects or imagines to the 7th consciousness, and in turn, the 7th consciousness will transfer these objects to the Alayu consciousness. Let us examine the body and mind to see whether in either of them we can locate the self. We will find in neither of them. Then, the so-called self is just a term for a collection of physical and mental factors. Let us first look at the aggregate matter of form. The aggregate of form corresponds to what we would call material or physical factors. It includes not only our own bodies, but also the material objects that surround us, i.e., houses, soil, forests, and oceans, and so on. However, physical elements by themselves are not enough to produce experience. The simple contact between the eyes and visible objects, or between the ear and sound, cannot result in experience without consciousness. Only the co-presence of consciousness together with the sense of organ and the object of the sense organ produces experience. In other words, it is when the eyes, the visible object, and consciousness come together that the experience of a visible object is produced. Consciousness is therefore an extremely important element in the production of experience. Consciousness, or the 6th sense, or the mind. This sense organ together with the other 5 sense organs of eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body to produce experience. The physical and mental factors of experience work together to produce personal experience, and the nature of the 5 aggregates are in constant change. Therefore, according to the Buddha's teachings, the truth of a man is selfless. The body and mind that man misunderstands of his self is not a self, it is not his, and he is not it. Devout Buddhists should grasp this idea firmly to establish an appropriate method of cultivation not only for the body, but also for the speech and mind. Besides, we also have the 7th consciousness, or the manovijnana, which is the transmitting consciousness that relays sensory information from the mind to the Alayu consciousness, or the 8th consciousness, which functions as a storehouse of all sensory information. First, eye consciousness. The function of the eye consciousness is to perceive and apprehend visual forms. Without the eye consciousness we could not behold any visual form. However, the eye consciousness depends on the eye faculty. When the eye faculty and any form meet, the eye consciousness develops instantly. If the eye faculty and the form never meet, eye consciousness will never arise. A blind person who lacks the eye faculty, thus eye consciousness can never develop. Buddhist cultivators should always understand thoroughly this vital point to minimize the meeting between eye faculty and visual forms, so that no or very limited eye consciousness will ever arise. The Buddha reminded his disciples that meditation is the only means to limit or stop the arising of the eye consciousness. Second, ear consciousness. The function of the ear consciousness is to perceive and apprehend sounds. However, ear consciousness depends on the ear faculty. Ear faculty and any sound meet, the ear consciousness develops instantly. In a deaf person, ear faculty and sounds never meet, therefore no ear consciousness will arise. Buddhist cultivators should always remember this and try to practice meditation, stop or close the ear consciousness if possible. Third, smell consciousness. The nose consciousness develops immediately from the dominant condition of the nose faculty when it focuses on smell. Nose consciousness completely depends on the nose faculty. Someone who lacks smelling capability, nose faculty and smell never meet, therefore, nose consciousness will never arise. Buddhist cultivators should always practice meditation to stop or close the nose consciousness. Fourth, taste consciousness. The tongue consciousness develops immediately through the dominant condition of the tongue when the tongue faculty focuses on a certain taste. At that very moment, we experience and distinguish between tastes and desire arises. Fifth, tactile sensation consciousness. Body consciousness develops when the dominant condition in which the body faculty meets an object of touch. The location of the body faculty is throughout the entire body. Cognition of the objects of touch, one of the 5 forms of cognition. Here a monk, on touching a tangible object with the body, is neither pleased nor displeased, but remains equable, mindful and clearly aware. This is one of the 6 stable states which the Buddha taught in the Sanjiti Sutta in the Long Discourses. Sixth, mono-consciousness. The mono-consciousness is the thinking consciousness that coordinates the perceptions of the sense organs. The mind consciousness, the 6th or the intellectual consciousness is not the mind, it's the function of the mind. The sentient being's mind is an ever-spinning whirlpool in which mental activities never cease. There are 4 stages of production, dwelling, change, and decay. A mind which does not depend on any of the 5 sense faculties, but on the immediately preceding continuum of mind. Mental consciousness apprehends not only objects, form, sound, taste, smell, touch, in the present time, but it also apprehends objects in the past, and imagines objects even in the future. Mental consciousness will go with us from one life to another, while the first 5 consciousnesses are our temporary minds. Consciousness is also one of the 5 skandhas. The function of manovijnana is by hypothesis to reflect on manas, as the eye vijnana reflects on the world of forms and the ear vijnana on that of sounds, but in fact as soon as manas evolves the dualism of subject and object out of the absolute unity of the alaya, manovijnana and indeed all the other vijnanas begin to operate. Thus, in the Lankavatara Sutra, the Buddha said, Buddhist nirvana consists in turning away from the wrongfully discriminating manovijnana. For with manovijnana as cause, hetu, and support, alambana, there takes place the evolution of the 7 vijnanas. Further, when manovijnana discerns and clings to an external world of particulars, all kinds of habit energy, vasana, are generated therefrom, and by them the alaya is nurtured. Together with the thought of me and mine taking hold of it and clinging to it, and reflecting upon it, manas thereby take shape and is evolved. In substance, sarira, however, manas and manovijnana are not different one from the other, they depend upon the alaya as cause and support. And when an external world is tenaciously held as real, which is no other than the presentation of one's own mind, the mentation system, cittakalapa, mutually related, is evolved in its totality. Like the ocean waves, the vijnanas set in motion by the wind of an external world which is the manifestation of one's own mind, rise and cease. Therefore, the 7 vijnanas cease with the cessation of manovijnana. A mind which does not depend on any of the 5 sense faculties, but on the immediately preceding continuum of mind. Mental consciousness apprehends not only objects, form, sound, taste, smell, touch, in the present time, but it also apprehends objects in the past, and imagines objects even in the future. Mental consciousness will go with us from one life to another, while the first 5 consciousnesses are our temporary minds. Consciousness is also one of the 5 skandhas. Consciousness refers to the perception or discernment which occurs when our sense organs make contact with their respective objects. The first 5 consciousness correspond to the 5 senses. The 6th consciousness integrates the perceptions of the 5 senses into coherent images and make judgments about the external world. The 7th consciousness is the active center of reasoning, calculation, and construction or fabrication of individual objects. It is the source of clinging and craving, and thus the origin of self or ego, and the cause of illusion that arises from assuming the apparent to be real. The terms conscious and unconscious are used with several different meanings. In one meaning, which might be called functional, conscious and unconscious refer to a subjective state within the individual. Saying that he is conscious of this or that psychic content means that he is aware of effects, of desires, of judgments, etc. 7th, Klistamana's consciousness. Klista-mano-vijnana is a Sanskrit term for sentience. In Buddhism, it is called mental faculty, for it constitutes man as an intelligent and moral being. It is commonly thought to be equated with the term siddha or consciousness. It is derived from the Sanskrit root man, which means to think or to imagine, and is associated with intellectual activity of consciousness. This is the discriminating and constructive sense. It is more than the intellectually perceptive. It is the cause of all egoism. It creates the illusion of a subject I standing apart from the object world, and individualizing of men and things, all illusion arising from assuming the seeming as the real. The self-conscious defiled mind, which thinks, wills, and is the principal factor in the generation of subjectivity. It is a conveyor of the seed essence of sensory experiences to the 8th level of subconsciousness. It is described as a sea in which currents of thought surge and seethe. It is the transmitting consciousness that relays sensory information from the mind or mono-consciousness to the storehouse or alaya vijnana. According to the Lankavatara Sutra, this system of the 5 sense vijnanas is in union with manovijnana, and this mutuality makes the system distinguish between what is good and what is not good. Manovijnana in union with the 5 sense vijnanas grasps forms and appearances in their multitudinous effect, and there is not a moment's cessation of activity. This is called the momentary character of the vijnanas. This system of vijnanas is stirred uninterruptedly and all the time like the waves of the great ocean. Klistamana's consciousness is the thinking consciousness that coordinates the perceptions of the sense organs. The mind consciousness, the 6th or the intellectual consciousness, is not the mind, it's the function of the mind. The sentient being's mind is an ever-spinning whirlpool in which mental activities never cease. There are 4 stages of production, dwelling, change, and decay. A mind which does not depend on any of the 5 sense faculties, but on the immediately preceding continuum of mind. Mental consciousness apprehends not only objects, form, sound, taste, smell, touch, in the present time, but it also apprehends objects in the past, and imagines objects even in the future. Mental consciousness will go with us from one life to another, while the first 5 consciousnesses are our temporary minds. Consciousness is also one of the 5 skandhas. This acts like the collection station for the first 6 consciousnesses. The 7th of the 8 consciousnesses, which means thinking and measuring, or calculating. It is the active mind, or activity of mind, but is also used for the mind itself. The waves will be seen ruffling the surface of the ocean of alaya vijnana, when the principle of individuation known as vishaya blows over it like the wind. The waves thus started are this world of particulars where the intellect discriminates, the affection clings, and passions and desires struggle for existence and supremacy. This particularizing agency sits within the system of vijnanas and is known as manas. In fact, it is when manas begins to operate that a system of the vijnanas manifests itself. They are thus called object discriminating vijnana, vastu prativikalpa vijnana. The function of manas is essentially to reflect upon the alaya and to create, and to discriminate subject and object from the pure oceans of the alaya. The memory accumulated, C8, in the latter is now divided into dualities of all forms and all kinds. This is compared to the manifoldness of waves that stir up the ocean of alaya. Manas is an evil spirit in one sense, and a good one in another, for discrimination in itself is not evil, is not necessarily always false judgment, abhuta parakalpa, or wrong reasoning, prapanka dishdulya. But it grows to be the source of great calamity when it creates desires based upon its wrong judgments, such as when it believes in the reality of an ego substance, and becomes attached to it as the ultimate truth. For manas is not only a discriminating intelligence, but a willing agency, and consequently an actor. Jnana is a kind of intuition, the sense that there is a separate self which can exist independently of the rest of the world. This intuition is produced by habit and ignorance. Its illusory nature has been constructed by vijnapti, and it, in turn, becomes a basis for vijnapti. The object of this intuition is a distorted fragment of alaya which it considers to be a self, comprised of a body and a soul. It of course is never reality in itself, but just a representation of reality. In its role as a self as well as consciousness of this self, jnana is regarded as the basic obstacle to penetrating reality. Contemplation performed by vijnapti can remove the erroneous perceptions brought about by manas. The function of manovijnana is by hypothesis to reflect on manas, as the eye vijnana reflects on the world of forms and the ear vijnana on that of sounds, but in fact as soon as manas evolves the dualism of subject and object out of the absolute unity of the alaya, manovijnana and indeed all the other vijnanas begin to operate. Thus, in the Lankava, further, when manovijnana discerns and clings to an external world of particulars, all kinds of habit energy, vasana, are generated therefrom, and by them the alaya is nurtured. Together with the thought of me and mine taking hold of it and clinging to it, and reflecting upon it, manas thereby take shape and is evolved. In substance, sarira, however, manas and manovijnana are not different one from the other, they depend upon the alaya as cause and support. And when an external world is tenaciously held as real, which is no other than the presentation of one's own mind, the mentation system, cittakalapa, mutually related, is evolved in its totality. Like the ocean waves, the vijnanas set in motion by the wind of an external world which is the manifestation of one's own mind, rise and cease. Therefore, the 7 vijnanas cease with the cessation of manovijnana. 8th, alaya vijnana. Alaya vijnana, the receptacle intellect or consciousness, basic consciousness, 8th consciousness, subconsciousness, and store consciousness. The storehouse consciousness or basis from which come all seeds of consciousness or from which it responds to causes and conditions. Specific seeds are reconveyed by manas to the 6 senses, precipitating new actions, which in turn produce other seeds. This process is simultaneous and endless. Alaya vijnana is also called open knowledge, the store of knowledge where all is revealed, either good or bad. Alaya means a house or rather a home, which is in turn a place where all the valued things for use by us are kept, and among which we dwell. Also called store consciousness, 8th consciousness or karma repository. All karma created in the present and previous lifetime is stored in the alaya consciousness. According to the consciousness only, there are 8 consciousnesses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, mind, mana and alaya. These consciousnesses enable sentient beings to discriminate between right and wrong of all dharmas, thoughts, feelings, physical things, etc. However, human beings have a deep consciousness which is called alaya consciousness, which is the actual subject of rebirth, and is mistakenly taken to be an eternal solar self by the other consciousnesses. It is in the alaya consciousness that the impressions of action and experience are stored in the form of seeds, and it is these seeds which engender further experiences according to the individual situation. According to Asvagosa Bodhisattva in the Awakening of Faith in the Samparagraha, the alaya or store is the consciousness in which the true and the false unite. When alaya consciousness becomes pure and taintless, it is tathata, thusness, also known as alaya vijnana. In the Lankavatara Sutra, the Buddha told Mahamati, "O Mahamati, the Tathagata garbage contains in itself causes alike good and not good, and from which are generated all paths of existence. It is like an actor playing different characters without harboring any thought of me and mine." Alaya means all-conserving. It is in company with the 7 vijnanas which are generated in the dwelling house of ignorance. The function of alaya vijnana is to look into itself where all the memory, vasana, the beginningless past is preserved in a way beyond consciousness, asindhya, and ready for further evolution, parinama, but it has no active energy in itself, it never acts, it simply perceives. It is in this exactly like a mirror, it is again like the ocean. Perfectly smooth with no waves disturbing its tranquility, and it is pure and undefiled, which means that it is free from a dualism of subject and object. For it is the pure act of perceiving, with no differentiation yet of the knowing one and the known. According to Prof. Junjiro Takakusu in the Essentials of Buddhist Philosophy, when all things are reflected on our mind, our discriminating or imaginating power is already at work. This called our consciousness, vijnana. Since the consciousness coordinating all reflected elements stores them, it is called the store consciousness or ideation store. The ideation store itself is an existence of causal combination, and in it the pure and tainted elements are causally combined or intermingled. When the ideation store begins to move and descend to the everyday world, then we have the manifold existence that is only an imagined world. The ideation store, which is the seed consciousness, is the conscious center, and the world manifested by ideation is its environment. It is only from the Buddha's perfect enlightenment that pure ideation flashed out. This pure ideation can purify the tainted portion of the ideation store and further develop its power of understanding. The world of imagination and the world of interdependence will be brought to the real truth, parinispana. This having been attained, the seed store, as consciousness, will disappear altogether and ultimately will reach the state where there is no distinction between subject and object. The knowledge so gained has no discrimination, avikalpa vijnana. This ultimate state is the nirvana of no abode, apratisthita nirvana, that is to say, the attainment of perfect freedom, not being bound to one place. The function of alaya vijnana is to look into itself where all the memory, vasana, of the beginningless past is preserved in a way beyond consciousness, asindhya, and ready for further evolution, parinama, but it has no active energy in itself, it never acts, it simply perceives. It is in this exactly like a mirror, it is again like the ocean. Perfectly smooth with no waves disturbing its tranquility, And it is pure and undefiled, which means that it is free from the dualism of subject and object. For it is the pure act of perceiving, with no differentiation yet of the knowing one and the known. The initiator of change, or the first power of change or mutation, i.e. the alaya vijnana, so called because other vijnanas are derived from it. An important doctrinal concept that is particularly important in the Yogacara tradition. This term is sometimes translated by Western scholars as storehouse consciousness, since it acts as the repository, of the predisposition, Thien that one's actions produce. It stores these predispositions until the conditions are right for them to manifest themselves. The Tibetan translators rendered, Hoen Lai, it is basis of all, because it serves as the basis for all of the phenomena of cyclic existence in nirvana. Through meditative practice and engaging in meritorious actions, one gradually replaces afflicted seeds with pure ones. When one has completely purified the continuum of the alaya vijnana, it is referred to as the purified consciousness. Alaya means all-conserving mind. It is in company with the 7 vijnanas, which are generated in the dwelling house of ignorance. Alaya means the pre-consciousness, or the 8th consciousness, or the store consciousness. It is the central or universal consciousness which is the womb or store consciousness, the storehouse consciousness where all karmic seeds enter and cause all thought activities. All karma created in the present and previous lifetime is stored in the alaya consciousness. This is like a storage space receiving all information collected in the mana consciousness. When a sentient being dies, the first 7 consciousnesses die with it, but the alaya consciousness carries on. It is the supreme ruler of one existence which ultimately determines where one will gain rebirth in the 6 realms of existence. 206. External states or objects. A prospect, region, territory, surroundings, views, circumstances, environment, area, field, sphere, environments and conditions, i.e. the sphere of mind, the sphere of form for the eye, of sound for the ear, etc. External realms are realms which are not created by the mind, but come from the outside. A prospect, region, territory, surroundings, views, circumstances, environment, area, field, sphere, environments and conditions, i.e. the sphere of mind, the sphere of form for the eye, of sound for the ear, etc. If you can remain unperturbed by external states, then you are currently cultivating. On the contrary, if you are turned by external states, then you will fall. External states are also external conditions or circumstances which stir or tempt one to do evil. Problems and dissatisfaction do not develop because of external conditions, but from our own mind. If we don't have internal peace, nothing from outside can bring us happiness. According to the mind-only theories, different realms mean the ideas or mental states which arise according to the various objects or conditions toward which the mind is directed. According to the Fa-Xiang school, this group of elements falls under the general category of mental function, which has 5 elements: desire, verification, recollection, meditation, and wisdom. According to Lama Anarika Govinda, the Buddhist as well as a Zen practitioner, does not believe in an independent or separate existing external world into those dynamic forces he could insert himself. The external world and his internal world are for him only 2 sides of the same fabric, in which threads of all force and of all events, of all forms of consciousness and of their objects, are woven into an inseparable net of endless mutually conditioned relations. External realms are realms which are not created by the mind, but come from the outside. For example, some practitioners might see Buddhas and Bodhisattvas appearing before them, preaching the Dharma, exhorting and praising them. Others, while reciting the Buddha's name, suddenly experience an awakening and immediately see the land of ultimate bliss. Some practitioners, in the midst of their pure recitation, see deities and immortals arrive, join hands and circumambulate them respectfully, or invite them for a leisurely stroll. Still other practitioners see wandering souls of the dead arrive, seeking to take refuge with them. Yet others, having reached a high level in their practice, have to endure challenges and harassment from external demons. In case of seeing the Buddhas and lotus blossoms, is it not to see demonic apparitions? If cause and effect coincide, these are not demonic realms. This is because the Pure Land method belongs to the Dharma door of existence. When Pure Land practitioners first develop the Bodhi mind, they enter the way through forms and marks, and seek to view the celestial scenes of the Western Pure Land. When they actually witness these auspicious scenes, it is only a matter of effects corresponding to causes. If cause and effect are in accord, how can these be demonic realms? In the Zen school, on the other hand, the practitioner enters the way through the Dharma door of emptiness. Right from the beginning of his cultivation, he wipes out all marks, even the marks of the Buddhas or the Dharma are destroyed. The Zen practitioner does not seek to view the Buddhas or the lotus blossoms, yet the marks of the Buddhas or the lotus blossoms appear to him. Therefore, cause and effect do not correspond. For something to appear without a corresponding cause is indeed the realm of the demons. Thus, the Zen practitioner always holds the sword of wisdom aloft. If the demons come, he kills the demons. If the Buddha comes, he kills the Buddha. To enter the realm of true emptiness is not to tolerate a single mark. According to the Dharmalaksana, the objects of the outer world, Visaya, which throw shadows on the mind face, are of three kinds. The theory of three kinds of the object domain may have originated from Nalanda, but the four-line memorial verse current in the school is probably of Chinese origin. It runs as follows. The object of nature does not follow the mind, subjective. The subject may be good or evil, but the object is always neutral. The mere shadow only follows the seeing, subjective. The object is as the subject imagines. The object with the original substance. The character, seed, etc., are various as occasions require. The object has an original substance, but the subject does not see it as it is. This four-line verse explains how the three kinds of the object domain are related to the subjective function and the outer original substance. One may be puzzled in understanding how an idealism can have a so-called original substance. We should not forget that though it is an outer substance, it is after all a thing manifested out of ideation. The eighth, the alaya consciousness itself, is not an unchangeable fixed substance, dravya, but is itself ever-changing instantaneously, ksanika, and repeatedly, and, being perfumed or having impressions made upon it by cognition and action, it becomes habituated and efficient in manifestation. It is like a current of water which never stops at one place for 2 consecutive moments. It is only with reference to the continuity of the stream that we can speak of a river. Let's examine these three kinds of object domain. First, object domain of nature or immediate perception. The object that has the original substance and presents it as it is, just as the 5 objects of the sense, form, sound, smell, taste and touch, are perceived as they are. The first 5 sense consciousnesses and the 8th, the store consciousness, perceive the object in this way. Second, object domain with the original substance. The object has an original substance, and yet is not perceived as it is. When the 7th, the thought center, looks at the subjective function of the 8th, the store center, it considers that it is self or ego. The subjective function of the 8th, the store center, has its original substance or entity, but it is not seen as it is by the 7th consciousness, and is regarded to be self or an abiding ego, which is in reality an illusion, since it is not self at all. Third, object domain of mere shadow or illusion. The shadow image appears simply from one's own imagination and has no real existence. Of course, it has no original substance as a ghost which does not exist at all. Only the 6th sense center functions on it and imagines it to be. Meditation helps our mental intelligence or spirit of mind be no longer troublesome with external things. Whether something objective is troublesome or not often depends on the state of mind rather than the object itself. If we think that it is trouble, then it is trouble. If we do not think that it is trouble, then it is not trouble. Everything depends on the mind. For example, sometimes during meditation we are interrupted by outside noises. If we dwell on them and cling to them, they will disturb our meditation, but if we dismiss them from our minds as soon as they arise, then they will not cause a disturbance. If we are always demanding something out of our life, then we will never be content. But if we accept life as it is, then we know contentment. Some people seek happiness through material things, other people can be happy without many material things. Why? Because happiness is also a state of mind, not a quantitative measure of possessions. If we are satisfied with what we are and have now, then we are happy. But if we are not satisfied with what we are and have now, that is where unhappiness dwells. The desire is bottomless, because no matter how much is put into it, it can never be filled up, it always remains empty. The sutra in 42 chapters taught. Though a person filled with desires dwells in heaven, still that is not enough for him. Though a person who has ended desire dwells on the ground, still he is happy. 207. Internal realms. Internal realms are also called realms of the self-mind because they do not come from outside, but develop from the mind. Those who do not clearly understand the truth that the 10,000 dharmas are created by the mind think that all realms come from the outside. This is wrong. When the practitioner reaches the stage of mutual interpenetration of mind and realms, completely severing external conditions, the seeds of latent dharmas in the alaya consciousness suddenly manifest themselves. For the Buddha recitation or mantra chanting practitioner, the power of the Buddha's name or the mantra penetrates deep into the mind, eliciting a reaction from the wholesome or evil seeds in the alaya consciousness. The realms that result are very complex and usually appear in dreams, or even when the practitioner is awake and striving to recite the Buddha's name. In Buddhism, this condition is called changing manifestations of the alaya consciousness. In the dreaming scenes, if the events or scenes result from evil seeds, the practitioner may see various species of worms crawling out of his body, or witness himself, night after night, removing from his body 6 or 7 loathsome creatures with many limbs, such as scorpions or centipedes. Or else, he may see various species of wild animals and/or spirits or ghosts. Such realms are innumerable and cannot all be described. In general, individuals greatly afflicted with greed, who are miserly and wicked, usually see marks of men and women, snakes and serpents and odd species with white features and forms. Those harboring a great deal of anger and resentment usually see tigers and leopards or strange species with red forms and features. Those who are heavily deluded usually see domestic animals, clams, oysters, snails or different species with black forms and features. The above, however, is merely indicative. It does not mean that everything will be exactly as described. If the scenes in his dream come from good wholesome seeds, the practitioner sees tall trees and exotic flowers, beautiful scenery, bright adorned with nets of pearls. Or else, he sees himself eating succulent fragrant food, wearing ethereal garments, dwelling in palaces of diamonds and other precious substances, or flying high in open space. Thus, in summary, all the seeds of the 10 Dharma realms are found in the minds of sentient beings. If wholesome seeds manifest themselves, practitioners view the realms of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, human, and celestial beings. If evil karma is manifested, they witness scenes from the wretched 3 evil paths. If the cultivator has followed externalist ways in past lives, he usually sees his body emitting electric waves, or his soul leaving the body to roam, meeting demons, ghosts and the like, to discuss politics and the rise and fall of countries and empires. On the other hand, when the practitioner's mind is pure, he will know in his dreams about events that will occur 3 or 4 days, or 7 or 8 months hence. In general, those who have cultivated in previous lives will immediately see auspicious realms when reciting the Buddha's name. Those with heavy karma, lacking merit and virtue, will usually see evil realms when they begin Buddha recitation. In time, these evil omens will disappear and gradually be replaced with auspicious omens. If the practitioner's efforts have reached a high level, there are times during his walking hours when all deluded feelings suddenly cease for a while, body and mind being at ease and free. At other times, the practitioner may recite for 4 or 5 hours, but feel that the time was very short, perhaps 2 or 3 minutes. Or else, at times during recitation, wholesome omens will appear. At other times, unconsciously, his mind experiences great contentment and bliss. Sometimes, he realizes for a split second that mind and realm are both empty. At other times, just by hearing or seeing something once, he becomes awakened to the truth of suffering, emptiness, impermanence and no self, completely severing the marks of self and others. These occurrences are too numerous to be fully described. Visionary scenes such as the above, called internal realms or realms of the self-mind, have their origin in a thought of peace and stillness, or are caused by wholesome seeds generated by Buddha or mantra recitation. They appear suddenly and are lost immediately. The practitioner should not be attached to them, thinking that they are real, nor should he remember them fondly. It is an extreme mistake to develop nostalgia for them, thinking how ethereal, calm and peaceful, beautiful and well adorned they were. They daydream about them, unable to forget them, longing for their reappearance. The ancients have criticized such thoughts as scratching in advance and waiting for the itch. This is because these scenes have their origin in diligent exertion and appear temporarily. They have no true existence. We should realize that when the practitioner exerts a certain level of efforts, the scenes and features particular to that level will appear naturally. Take the example of a traveler who views different scenery as he passes along various stretches of the road. If he has not reached home, yet developed such an attachment and fondness for a particular scene along the road that he refuses to proceed, his travel will be impeded. He will then be helplessly lost in the midst of his journey, not knowing when he will finally return home to rest. The practitioner is like that traveler. If he becomes attached to and fond of temporary realms and scenes, he will never attain the true realms. Were he to dream of them to the point of insanity, he would be destroyed by demons and waste an entire lifetime of practice. The Diamond Sutra states, "Everything in this world that has marks is illusory. To see marks is not marks is to see the Tathagata." Everything that has marks refers here to compounded conditioned dharmas. Those marks cannot be said either to exist or not to exist, or to be true or false. Delusion arises precisely because unenlightened sentient beings discriminate, become attached and think that these marks exist or do not exist, are real or are false. Even the fondness which some Zen practitioners develop for samadhi, upon entering concentration and experiencing this immense empty, still, transparent, peaceful and free realm, falls into the category of having marks. The same is true when these practitioners, once awakened to a certain lofty transcendental principle, joyfully grasp at it. Once there are marks, there is delusion. To see marks means to see such marks as auspicious or evil, good or bad, dirty or clean, existent or non-existent, Buddha or sentient beings, even the realms of the 5 skandhas or the 6 dusts, etc. As not marks mean seeing, but neither becoming attached to nor rejecting them, just letting everything be. Why should we not reject them? It is because marks, while illusory, are not non-existent. This is not unlike the reflection of the moon in the water. Although the reflected moon is not real, this does not mean that there is no illusory mark of moonlight. Therefore, if we see marks appear while we are cultivating, we should disregard them and redouble our efforts, just like the traveler, who views varied scenery en route, but must push forward to reach home quickly. To see the Tathagata is to see the original Buddha nature, to see the way. In summary, all states of mind, from those described above to the state of one-pointedness of mind, belong to the category of internal realms. These realms have 2 aspects: attainment-like and partial attainment. Attainment-like realms appear temporarily and disappear immediately. Partial attainment realms are those that once achieved, we have forever, because we have actually attained a part of true thusness. Regardless of whether it is internal or external, if it is attainment-like, it is not a true realm, it is merely a full understanding of some of the manifestations of the true mind. Practitioners who truly seek liberation should not confuse these aspects, taking attainment-like marks for the true realm. Attainment-like marks are like a dark leaden sky which suddenly clears, thanks to the winds which temporarily push away the dark clouds, letting a few rays of sunlight through before the sky becomes overcast again. They also resemble the mark of smoke just before the fire that people used to get when they rub 2 pieces of wood together. The true realm can be likened to the bright sunlight in a clear and calm sky. It is like rubbing pieces of wood together and already having fire. However, we should not underestimate attainment-like marks, as they demonstrate the genuine existence of the true realm. If, from that level, we diligently redouble our efforts, the true realm is not that far away after all. 208. The unconsciousness. Unconsciousness refers to a state of mind in which the person is not aware of his inner experiences. If he were totally unaware of all experiences, including sensory ones, he would be precisely like a person who is unconscious. Saying that the person is conscious of certain effects, etc., means he is conscious as far as these effects are concerned. Saying that certain effects are unconscious means that he is unconscious as far as these contents are concerned. We must remember that unconscious does not refer to the absence of any impulse, feeling, desire, fear, etc., but only to the absence of awareness of these impulses. Quite different from the use of conscious and unconscious in the functional sense just described is another use in which one refers to certain localities in the person and to certain contents connected with these localities. This is usually the case if the word the conscious and the unconscious are used. Here the conscious is one part of the personality, with specific contents, and the unconscious is another part of the personality, with other specific contents. The unconscious in its Zen sense is, no doubt, the mysterious, the unknown, and for that reason unscientific or anti-scientific. But this does not mean that it is beyond the reach of our consciousness and something we have nothing to do with. In fact, it is, on the contrary, the most intimate thing to us, and it is just because of this intimacy that it is difficult to take hold of, in the same way as the eye cannot see itself. To become, therefore, conscious of the unconscious requires a special training the part of consciousness. Etymologically speaking, consciousness was awakened from the unconscious sometime in the course of evolution. Nature works its way unconscious of itself, and the conscious man comes out of it. Consciousness is a leap, but the leap cannot mean a disconnection in its physical sense. For consciousness is in constant, uninterrupted communion with the unconscious. Indeed, without the later the former could not function, it would lose its basis of operation. This is the reason why Zen declares that the Tao is one's everyday mind. By Tao, Zen of course means the unconscious, which works all the time in our consciousness. For example, when hungry, one eats, when tired, one takes a rest, when sleepy, one sleeps, etc. However, if this is the unconscious that Zen talks about as something highly mysterious and of the greatest value in human life as the transforming agent, we cannot help doubting it. All those unconscious deeds have long been relegated to our instinctive reflexive domain of consciousness, in accordance with the principle of mental moderation. 209. The middle path. The mean between two extremes, between realism and nihilism, or eternal substantial existence and annihilation, or between the idea of a realm of mind or spirit, beyond the terminology of substance, hu, or nothing, voa. However, it includes both existence and non-existence. Middle path is the path that Sakyamuni Buddha discovered, which advises people to give up extremes, to keep away from bad deeds, to do good and to purify the mind. The Eightfold Noble Path. The Buddha taught, when discrimination is done away with, the middle way is reached, for the truth does not lie in the extreme alternatives, but in the middle position. The middle way was translated from Madhyama, a Sanskrit term, which means between two extremes, between realism and nihilism, or eternal substantial existence and annihilation, or between the idea of a realm of mind or spirit beyond the terminology of substance, hu, or nothing, voa. However, it includes both existence and non-existence. This doctrine, attributed to Sakyamuni Buddha, rejects the extremes of hedonistic self-indulgence on the one hand and extreme asceticism on the other. Sakyamuni Buddha discovered the middle path, which advises people to give up extremes, to keep away from bad deeds, to do good and to purify the mind. The Eightfold Noble Path. The Buddha taught, when discrimination is done away with, the middle way is reached, for the truth does not lie in the extreme alternatives but in the middle position. The doctrine of the middle path means in the first instance the middle path between the two extremes of optimism and pessimism. Such a middle position is a third extreme, tending neither one way nor the other, is what the Buddha wanted to say. The Buddha certainly began with this middle as only one step higher than the ordinary extremes. A gradual ascent of the dialectical ladder, however, will bring us higher and higher, until a stage is attained, wherein the antithetic onesidedness of ends and non-ends is denied and transcended by an idealistic synthesis. In this case, the middle path has a similar purport as the highest truth. Doing things just moderately is the middle path. Sincere Buddhists should not lean to one side. Do not go too far, nor fail to go far enough. If you go too far, or not far enough, it is not the middle way. In cultivation, sincere Buddhists should not fall into the two extremes of emptiness and existence. Do not be attached to true emptiness, nor be obstructed by wonderful existence, for true emptiness and wonderful existence cannot be grasped or renounced. The notion of a middle way is fundamental to all Buddhist teachings. The middle way was clearly explained by the Madhyamaka. It is not the property of the Madhyamaka, however, it was given priority by Nagarjuna and his followers, who applied it in a singularly relentless fashion to all problems of ontology, epistemology, and soteriology. In the Katyanavabheda Sutra, the Buddha told Mahakasyapa, Kasyapa, it is one extreme alternative, not is another extreme alternative. That which is the Madhyama position is intangible, incomparable, without any position, non-appearing, incomprehensible. That is what is meant by Madhyama position. Kasyapa. It is perception of reality. Extremes become the dead ends of eternalism and annihilism. There are those who cling exclusively to non-being, and there are others who cling exclusively to being. By his doctrine of middle way, Madhyama Pratipatti, the Buddha meant to show the truth that things are neither absolute being nor absolute non-being, but are arising and perishing, forming continuous becoming, and that reality is transcendent to thought, and cannot be caught up in the dichotomies of the mind. Therefore, the way to liberation first taught by the Buddha was the middle path, lying between the extremes of indulgence in desire and self-mortification. Our mind must be open to all experience without it losing its balance and falling into these extremes. This will help us see things without reacting and grabbing or pushing away. When we understand this balance, then the path of liberation becomes clearer. When pleasant things arise, we will realize that they will not last, that they offer us no security, and that they are empty. When unpleasant and disappointed things arise, we will see that they will not last, that they offer us no security, and that they are empty. We will see that there is nothing in the world has any essential value, there is nothing for us to hold on to. When saying this, we do not mean that we don't need anything. We still have our minimum needs for our living, but we know how to be content with few desires, and we will not hold on to any unnecessary things. According to the interpretation of Nagarjuna Bodhisattva in the Madhyamaka Sastra, right is the middle. The middle versus two extremes is antithetic middle or relative middle. The middle after the two extremes have been totally refuted is the middle devoid of extremes. When the ideas of two extremes is removed altogether, it is the absolute middle. Thus the absolute right is the absolute middle. When the absolute middle condescends to lead people at large, it becomes a temporary middle or truth. Also according to Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, we have thus the fourfold middle path. When the theory of being is opposed to the theory of non-being, the former is regarded as the worldly truth, and the latter the higher truth. When the theory of being and non-being are opposed to those of neither being nor non-being, the former are regarded as the worldly truth, and the latter the higher truth. If the four opposed theories just mentioned together become the worldly truth, the yet higher views deeming them all will be regarded as the higher truth. If the expressed in the last stage become the worldly truth, the denial of them all will be the higher truth. Besides, Nagarjuna also wrote the 8 negation. In the 8 negations, all specific features of becoming are denied. The fact that there are just 8 negations has no specific purport. This is meant to be a whole negation. It may be taken as a crosswise sweeping away of all 8 errors attached to the world of becoming, or a reciprocal rejection of the 4 pairs of one-sided views, or a lengthwise general thrusting aside of the errors one after the other. In this way, all discriminations of oneself and another or this and that are done away with. Neither birth nor death, there nothing appears, nothing disappears, meaning there is neither origination nor cessation, refuting the idea of appearing or birth by the idea of disappearance. Neither end nor permanence, there nothing has an end, nothing is eternal, meaning neither permanence nor impermanence, refuting the idea of permanence by the idea of destruction. Neither identity nor difference, nothing is identical with itself, nor is there anything differentiated, meaning neither unity nor diversity, refuting the idea of unity by the idea of diversity. Neither coming nor going, nothing comes, nothing goes, refuting the idea of disappearance by the idea of come, meaning neither coming in nor going out, refuting the idea of come by the idea of go. When we hear about the non-self existence and the illusory nature of all phenomena including the I, we might conclude that ourselves, others, the world and enlightenment are totally non-existent. Such a conclusion is nihilistic and too extreme. Devout Buddhists should always follow the middle path. According to the Buddha, all phenomena do exist. It is their apparently concrete and independent manner of existence that is mistaken and must be rejected. We should always remember that all existent phenomena are mere appearances and lacking concrete self-existence. They come into being from the interplay of various causes and conditions. They arise, abide, change and disappear. All of them are constantly subject to change. This is true of ourselves as well. No matter what our innate sense of ego grasping may believe, there is no solid inherent I to be found anywhere inside or outside our ever-changing body and mind, mental and physical components. We and all other phenomena without exception are empty of even the smallest atom of self-existence, and it is this emptiness that is the ultimate nature of everything that exists. The Buddha was a deep thinker. He was not satisfied with the ideas of his contemporary thinkers. Those who regard this earthly life as pleasant or optimists are ignorant of the disappointment and despair which are to come. Those who regard this life as a life of suffering are pessimists may be tolerated as long as they are simply feeling dissatisfied with this life. But when they begin to give up this life as hopeless and try to escape to a better life by practicing austerities or self-mortifications, then they are to be abhorred. The Buddha taught that the extremes of both hedonism and asceticism are to be avoided and that the middle course should be followed as the ideal. This does not mean that one should simply avoid both extremes and take the middle course as the only remaining course of escape. Rather, one should transcend, not merely escape from such extremes. The enlightened one is the person who has really attained enlightenment, or one who attains a way of life that is in accord with the truth. His thought and conduct are naturally fit for the purpose. He can also choose a way of life that is always in harmony with everything in the world. Thus, according to the definition of enlightenment, it is impossible for us to find a right or middle path simply by choosing the midpoint between two extremes. Each extreme represents a fundamental difference. If we conduct ourselves based on the truth of causation, without adhering to fixed ideas, we can always lead a life that is perfectly fit for its purpose, and one that is in harmony with the truth. This is the teaching of the middle path. How can we attain such a mental state? The teaching in which the Buddha shows us concretely how to attain this in our daily life is none other than the doctrine of the Eightfold Noble Path. An enlightened one is the one who looks at things rightly, right view, thinks about things rightly, right thinking, speaks the right words, right speech, performs right conduct, right action, leads a right human life, right living, endeavors to live rightly, right endeavor, constantly aims the mind in the right direction, right memory, and constantly keeps the right mind and never be agitated by anything, right meditation. An enlightened one always renders service to others in all spheres, spiritual, material, and physical, is donation. To remove illusion from one's own mind in accordance the precepts taught by the Buddha, leading a right life and gaining the power to save others by endeavoring to perfect oneself, enduring any difficulty and maintaining a tranquil mind without arrogance even at the height of prosperity, is perseverance. To proceed straight toward an important goal without being sidetracked by trivial things is assiduity. To maintain a cool and unagitated mind under all circumstances is meditation. And eventually to have the power of discerning the real aspect of all things is wisdom. 210. Subduing afflictions. Afflictions are distress, worldly cares, vexations, and as consequent reincarnation. They are such troubles as desire, hate, stupor, pride, doubt, erroneous views, etc., leading to painful results in future rebirths, for they are karma messengers executing its purpose. Klesa also means negative mental factors that lead beings to engage in non-virtuous actions, which produce karmic results. Afflictions are all defilements that dull the mind, the basis for all unwholesome actions that bind people to the cycle of rebirths. Afflictions also mean all defilements that dull the mind, the basis for all unwholesome actions as well as kinks that bind people to the cycle of rebirths. People also call afflictions the thirst of Mara. In order to attain enlightenment, the number one priority is to eliminate these defilements by practicing meditation on a regular basis. Practitioners of mindfulness subdue afflictions in 4 basic ways. Subduing afflictions with the mind by going deep into meditation or Buddha recitation. Subduing afflictions with Naumanan. When deluded thoughts arise which cannot be subdued with mind through meditation or Buddha recitation, we should move to the next step by visualizing principles. Whenever afflictions of greed develops, we should visualize the principles of impurity, suffering, impermanence and no self. When anger arises, we should visualize the principles of compassion, forgiveness and emptiness of all dharmas. Subduing afflictions with phenomena. When meditation, Buddha recitation and Naumanan don't work for someone with heavy karma, leaving phenomena, external form leaving the scene, can be used. That is to say to leave the scene. When we know that anger or quarrel is about to burst out, we can leave the scene and slowly sip a glass of water to cool ourselves down. Subduing afflictions with repentance and recitation sutras, mantras, or reciting the noble name of Amitabha Buddha. 211. Afflictions are bodhi. According to the Mahayana teaching, especially the Thien Phuc sect, afflictions are inseparable from Buddhahood. Affliction and Buddhahood are considered to be 2 sides of the same coin. The one is included in the other. When we realize that afflictions in themselves can have no real and independent existence, therefore, we don't want to cling to anything, at that very moment, afflictions are bodhi without any difference. Once we thoroughly understand the real meaning of afflictions are bodhi, we've already subdued our own afflictions. The Buddha witnessed that all sentient beings undergo great sufferings, so he resolved to leave the home life, to cultivate and find a way to help sentient beings escape these sufferings. Afflictions manifest themselves through our ignorance. Sometimes they show in our appearance, sometimes they are hidden in our minds, etc. In our daily life, we cannot do without sufferings and afflictions. However, if we know how to cultivate, we always consider afflictions as bodhi. If we know how to use it, affliction is bodhi. On the contrary, if we do not know how to use it, then bodhi becomes affliction. According to late Most Venerable Xuanhuan Talks on Dharma, Volume 7, bodhi is analogous to water, and affliction to ice. Ice and water are of the same substance, there is no difference. In freezing weather, water will freeze into ice, and in hot weather, ice will melt into water. When there are afflictions, water freezes into ice, and when the afflictions are gone, ice melts into water. It is to say, having afflictions is having the affliction ice of ignorance, having no afflictions is having the bodhi water of wisdom. 212. Bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, or the thought of enlightenment, is an important concept in both Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism. Though not directly mentioned, the idea is explicit in the Theravada Buddhism. It was in Mahayana, however, that the bodhisattva concept developed along both ethical and metaphysical lines, and this development is found in Vajrayana too, wherein it also came to be regarded as a state of great bliss. In Mahayana it developed along with pantheistic lines, for it was held that bodhisattva is latent in all beings, and that it is merely a manifestation of the Dharmakaya or Bhuttatattva in the human heart. Though the term bodhisattva does not occur in Pali, this concept is found in Pali canonical literature, where, for example, we are told how Gautama, after renouncing household life, resolved to strive to put an end to all the sufferings. It is this comprehension that came to be known as the Enlightenment, and Gautama came to be known as the Enlightened One, the Buddha. Bodhi. Mind, or the altruistic mind of enlightenment, is a mind which wishes to achieve attainment of enlightenment for self, spontaneously achieve enlightenment for all other sentient beings. The spirit of enlightenment, the aspiration to achieve it, the mindset on enlightenment. Bodhisattva is defined as the altruistic intention to become fully enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. The attainment of enlightenment is necessary for not only in order to be capable of benefiting others, but also for the perfection of our own nature. Bodhi mind is the gateway to enlightenment and attainment of Buddha. An intrinsic wisdom or the inherently enlightened heart mind, or the aspiration toward perfect enlightenment. The Buddha taught, all sentient beings are perfectly equal in that they all possess the Buddha nature. This means that we all have the Bodhi seed or the seed of kindness of a Buddha, and the compassion of a Buddha towards all living beings, and therefore the potential for enlightenment and for perfection lies in each one of us. Bodhisattva is a Sanskrit term means mind of awakening. In Mahayan Buddhism, this refers to bodhisattva's aspiration to attain Buddhahood in order to benefit other sentient beings, the aspiration of a bodhisattva for supreme enlightenment for the welfare of all. Therefore, the mind for or of Bodhi, the mind of enlightenment, the awakened or enlightened mind, is the mind that perceives the real behind the seeming, believes in moral consequences, and that all have the Buddha nature, and aims at Buddhahood. The spirit of enlightenment, the aspiration to achieve it, the mindset on enlightenment. It involves two parallel aspects. First, the determination to achieve Buddhahood, above is to seek Bodhi. Second, the aspiration to rescue all sentient beings, below is to save or transform all beings. Mind of enlightenment, mind of love, mind of deepest request to realize oneself and work for the well-being of all. The mind of enlightenment or the aspiration of a bodhisattva for supreme enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings. It is often divided into two aspects. 1. The intention to become awakened, and 2. Acting on the intention by pursuing the path to awakening, Bodhi. According to Zen Master Suzuki in the Outlines of Mahayana Buddhism, bodhisattva is the most important characteristic of bodhisattva. Thus, on the basis of Nagarjuna's discourse on the transcendentality of the bodhisattva, he gives a detailed description of bodhisattva. First, the bodhisattva is free from all determinations, the 5 skandhas, the 12 ayatanas, and the 18 datas. It is not particular, but universal. Second, love is the essence of the bodhisattva, therefore, all bodhisattvas find their reason of being in this. Third, the bodhisattva abides in the heart of sameness, samatha, creates individual means of salvation, upaya. Fourth, evidently Maitreya exhausted his power of speech in order to extol the importance of the bodhisattva in the career of a bodhisattva, for without this being dully impressed on the mind of the young Buddhist pilgrim sadhana, he could not have been led into the interior of the Tower of Vairocana. The tower harbors all the secrets that belong to the spiritual life of the highest Buddhist. If the novice were not quite fully prepared for the initiation, the secrets would have no signification whatever. They may even be grossly misunderstood, and the result will be calamitous indeed. For this reason, Maitreya left not a stone unturned to show sadhana what the bodhisattva really meant. There are 2 kinds of bodhi mind. The first kind of bodhi mind is the mind that vows to take the 4 universal vows of a Buddha or a bodhisattva, to be one's own original vows to save all sentient beings. The second kind of bodhi mind is the mind that has a perfect understanding of the ultimate reality, therefore, start out a vow above to seek bodhi, below to save beings. This is also the supreme bodhi mind. There are 3 kinds of bodhi mind. According to Most Venerable Thien Phuc in the Pure Land Buddhism in theory and practice, exchanging the virtues of Buddha recitation for the petty merits and blessings of this world is certainly not consonant with the intentions of the Buddhas. Therefore, practitioners should recite the name of Amitabha Buddha for the purpose of escaping the cycle of birth and death. However, if we were to practice Buddha recitation for the sake of our own salvation alone, we would only fulfill a small part of the Buddha's intentions. What, then, is the ultimate intention of the Buddhas? The ultimate intention of the Buddhas is for all sentient beings to escape the cycle of birth and death, and to become enlightened, as they are. Thus, those who recite Amitabha Buddha's name should develop the Bodhi mind or the aspiration for supreme enlightenment. The word Bodhi means enlightened. There are 3 main stages of enlightenment. First, the enlightenment of Sravakas or hearers. Second, the enlightenment of Pratika Buddhas or the self-awakened. Third, the enlightenment of Buddhas. What Pure Land practitioners who develop the Bodhi mind are seeking is precisely the enlightenment of the Buddhas. This stage of Buddhahood is the highest, transcending those of the Sravakas and Pratika Buddhas, and is therefore called Supreme Enlightenment or Supreme Bodhi. This Supreme Bodhi mind contains 2 principal seeds, compassion and wisdom, from which emanates the great undertaking of rescuing oneself and all other sentient beings. There are also 3 other kinds of Bodhi mind. The first kind of Bodhi mind is the mind to act out one's vows to save all living beings. To start out for Bodhi mind to act out one's vows to save all living beings, all beings possess Tathagata Garbha nature and can become a Buddha, therefore, vow to save them all. The second kind of Bodhi mind is the Bodhi mind which is beyond description, and which surpasses mere earthly ideas. The third kind of Bodhi mind is the Samadhi Bodhi mind. A state of enlightenment in which the mind is free from distraction, free from unclean hindrances, absorbed in intense purposeless concentration, thereby entering a state of inner serenity. Bodhi is the highest state of samadhi in which the mind is awakened and illuminated. The term Bodhi is derived from the Sanskrit root Bud, meaning knowledge, understanding, or perfect wisdom. A term that is often translated as enlightenment by Western translators, but which literally means awakening. Like the term Buddha, it is derived from the Sanskrit root Bud, to wake up, and in Buddhism, it indicates that a person has awakened from the sleep of ignorance, in which most beings spend their lives. According to Buddhist legend, the Buddha attained Bodhi in the town of Bodhgaya, while sitting in meditation under the Bodhi tree or Bodhi Vriksha. According to the Avatamsaka Sutra, Bodhi, enlightenment, belongs to living beings. Without living beings, no bodhisattva could achieve supreme, perfect enlightenment. The word Bodhi also means perfect wisdom or transcendental wisdom or supreme enlightenment. Bodhi is the state of truth or the spiritual condition of a Buddha or bodhisattva. The cause of Bodhi is prajna, wisdom, and karuna, compassion. According to the Hinayana, Bodhi is equated with the perfection of insight into and realization of the Four Noble Truths, which means the cessation of suffering. According to the Mahayana, Bodhi is mainly understood as enlightened wisdom. According to the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Buddha taught, good Buddhists, in bodhisattvas arise the Bodhi mind, the mind of great compassion, for the salvation of all beings, the mind of great kindness, for the unity with all beings, the mind of happiness, to stop the mass misery of all beings, the altruistic mind, to repulse all that is not good, the mind of mercy, to protect from all fears, the unobstructed mind, to get rid of all obstacles, the broad mind, to pervade all universes, the infinite mind, to pervade all spaces, the undefiled mind, to manifest the vision of all Buddhas, the purified mind, to penetrate all knowledge of past, present and future, the mind of knowledge, to remove all obstructive knowledge, and enter the ocean of all-knowing knowledge. Just as someone in water is in no danger from fire, the bodhisattva who is soaked in the virtue of the aspiration for enlightenment or bodhi mind, is in no danger from the fire of knowledge of individual liberation. Just as a diamond, even if cracked, relieves poverty, in the same way the diamond of the Bodhi mind, even if split, relieves the poverty of the mundane world. Just as a person who takes the elixir of life lives for a long time and does not grow weak, the bodhisattva who uses the elixir of the Bodhi mind goes around the mundane world for countless eons without becoming exhausted and without being stained by the ills of the mundane world. The Avatamsaka Sutra also says, to neglect the Bodhi mind when practicing good deeds is the action of demons. This teaching is very true indeed. For example, if someone begins walking without knowing the destination or goal of his journey, isn't his trip bound to be circuitous, tiring and useless? It is the same for the cultivator. If he expends a great deal of effort but forgets the goal of attaining Buddhahood to benefit himself and others, all his efforts will merely bring merits in the human and celestial realms. In the end he will still be deluded and revolved in the cycle of birth and death, undergoing immense suffering. If this is not the action of demons, what, then, is it? For this reason, developing the supreme Bodhi mind to benefit oneself and others should be recognized as a crucial step. A bodhisattva's Bodhi mind vows not only to destroy the lust of himself, but also to destroy the lust for all other sentient beings. A bodhisattva who makes the body-mind always vows to be the rain of food and drink, to clear away the pain of thirst and hunger during the eon of famine, to change himself into food and drink to clear away human beings' famine. That person always vows to be a good doctor, good medicine, or a good nurse for all sick people until everyone in the world is healed. That person always vows to become an inexhaustible treasure for those who are poor and destitute. For the benefiting of all sentient beings, the person with body-mind is willing to give up his virtue, materials, enjoyments, and even his body without any sense of fatigue, regret, or withdrawal. That person always believes that nirvana is nothing else but a total giving up of everything. Giving up does not mean throwing away or discarding, but it means to give out for the benefit of all sentient beings. In daily life, that person always stays calm even though he may get killed, abused or beaten by others. That person always vows to be a protector for those who need protection, a guide for all travelers on the way, a bridge or a boat for those who wish to cross a river, a lamp for those who need light in a dark night. The Mahabharata Sutra says, "The body-mind is the cause, great compassion is the root, skillful means are the ultimate." For example, if a person is to travel far, he should first determine the goal of the trip, then understand its purpose, and lastly, choose such expedient means of locomotion as automobiles, ships, or planes to set out on his journey. It is the same for the cultivator. He should first take supreme enlightenment as his ultimate goal, and the compassionate mind which benefits himself and others as the purpose of his cultivation, and then, depending on his references and capacities, choose a method, Zen, Pure Land or esotericism, as an expedient for practice. Expedients or skillful means refer, in a broader sense, to flexible wisdom adapted to circumstances, the application of all actions and practices, whether favorable or unfavorable, to the practice of the bodhisattva way. For this reason, the body-mind is the goal that the cultivator should clearly understand before he sets out to practice. This is the end of this video. If you're enjoying and benefit from this video and want to see more awesome content like this, please consider hitting that subscribe button below. It's the best way to stay updated with all of our latest videos. And if you found this video beneficial, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Your support means the world to us, and it helps our channel grow. Thank you for being part of our incredible community. Together, we can make this channel even more fantastic. Stay tuned for more beneficial content coming your way. Thank you.